big man, we're hitting the town tonight, right?
Nah, not for me, not tonight, I'm all good.
Come on, just one drink. Just one drink. Just one drink.
Okay, fine, but just one drink, alright? Nothing hectic. Welcome, everyone, to the fourth edition of the Football Iconic Season Review. We'll be taking a look at some of the more notable events from across the top 5 leagues on the planet based on UEFA coefficients. Here's the ranking. I know, shocking. For the first time in 21 years, neither Lionel Messi nor Cristiano Ronaldo have participated in a major European league. We knew this day would come, but I don't think most of us were ready. Ballon d'Or to Lionel Messi. Controversy has been the order of the day more often than any of us want. The PGMOL has had their most trusted ghostwriter on a steady payroll. Saudi Arabia became the hub for several national tournaments, and football officials faced major inquiries. The president of a major country continued to be more concerned with the movements of one TMNT than many are comfortable with. The Bundesliga refused to be bought, and secret agents were revealing themselves en masse. But at the same time, Real Madrid remained royal, Chelsea and Lyon escaped certain destruction, and Denzel Dumfries had a little bit of fun with Theo Hernandez. We're gonna try kick this one off with a bang, so we're gonna head over to Germany with the Bundesliga, and the only team in Europe that were very, very nearly perfect. Outside of football, maybe the biggest story that took place within the Bundesliga was the increased push for private equity investment into the league. Not for the first time, Germany's top football league revived talks with private equity firms to secure up to 1 billion euros for an 8% stake in the league's media rights. Blackstone, Advent, EQT, and CVC were the main firms involved. The investment would go towards international marketing, infrastructure, and media production rather than directly benefiting the club. Now, if you know anything about the Bundesliga, it shouldn't surprise you that fan protests were inevitable. Concerns over the competition's integrity were rife. In fact, anything involving cash grabs is looked down upon in this country. Remember when Dortmund fans were throwing fake gold bars on the pitch following UEFA's decision to expand the Champions League? That was this season too. On the pitch, the biggest story was Bayer Leverkusen. Bayer Leverkusen became the first team in the history of the Bundesliga to go an entire season without losing a single match. Not only that, but they picked up the DFB Pokal too. And in achieving this, they proved without a shadow of a doubt that they've had mystic assistance through their sheer volume of late winners. They transformed from Leverkusen to never losing. 17 goals after the 90th minute across the year. Many of these goals from losing positions to protect their unbeaten streak. An unbeaten streak that spanned 51 games in the season. 51 games without losing once is just outrageous. Xabi Alonso proved that he's up there with the best coaches on the planet with this showing, and the fans can't get enough of him. Florian Wirtz looks ready to become the leader of the current generation of German footballers, and I can only imagine things are going up from here for him. But the rest of the team were just as delightful in every sense. The only team to get the better of them were Atalanta, and they made Leverkusen look incredibly ordinary too. More on them later. Stuttgart surprised everyone by finishing the season in second place, meaning that Bayern Munich weren't even in the top 2. The team showed remarkable consistency throughout the season, 7 wins in their first 8 matches and 73 points by the time it was all said and done. That would have been enough to win them the league in the previous season. Serhou Guirassy was incredible with 28 goals overall. Dennis Undav got 18, and a massive credit needs to go towards Sebastian Hoeneß. As a coach, he kept the team strong and motivated throughout, even going on to clinch a 3-1 win against Munich at home on match day 37. The game that made finishing above them a real possibility. Munich, on the other hand, were cursed. It's really as simple as that. From the beginning to the end, the drama regarding Thomas Tuchel and the board, the team not agreeing with the tactics, and constant reminders of Harry Kane bringing his curse over to Germany with him were deafening. It is wild that the team that never loses ended up losing in the first year that this man goes to them. There's a reason that everyone refers to Bayern Munich as Hollywood FC, I guess. All the memes and silliness aside, Harry Kane had a phenomenal season this year. 44 goals in 45 games as he secured the European Golden Shoe. Let's all be real, this guy is going to win something eventually, he just has to, and when he does, I think everyone's going to celebrate it. When it became obvious that Bayern were not going to catch up to Leverkusen, the board started to look to take action. Now, based on the Nagelsmann situation before, we had an idea of what was going to happen, but I don't know if anyone could have predicted what actually happened. First, Tuchel announced his resignation early, then the board started getting rejected by almost every manager that they approached, then Uli Hoeneß started talking crazy about Tuchel in the media for some unknown reason, then it seemed like he was actually going to stay, only for it to be confirmed that him and the board were essentially irreconcilable. It's a wild ride, man. It's nothing that Vincent Kompany can't fix, right? RB Leipzig wrapped up the top four. Xavi Simons was an incredible acquisition for them and showed why he is such hot property in Europe at the moment. On the flip side, unfortunately for Dani Olmo, it was another season riddled with injury. If this guy got a full season under his belt, he would command a massive fee. You just know it. He's a baller. Last time he played more than 23 games in a season was 2021. Anyway, Borussia Dortmund had their worst season in the league for some time now, 5th. The league performances have been terribly inconsistent, and there was a general lack of faith in Edin Terzic throughout. And then they made the Champions League final, because why not? They even dominated for a large part of the opening minutes of that final too. It's too bad they were up against these guys though. Even more bad news is that Marco Reus announced that he would be leaving Dortmund at the end of the season, meaning that he never got to lift either the Bundesliga after multiple deep runs in the league, nor the Champions League trophy after getting to 2 finals. And from the lowest of lows, we turn our attention to the highest of highs. Real Madrid won their 36th league title almost uncontested, with a 10-point gap between them and Barcelona. Not only that, but the 15th Champions League trophy was secured too. I ask you all, is any of this fair? Does any of this make sense? They are the global superpower in the world of football, and they just seem to be getting better every single year. Jude Bellingham walked into the team at only 20 years old and immediately stole the show. 19 goals in the league as a midfielder is absolutely no joke. Deservedly, the La Liga Player of the Year. And then we have Vinicius Jr., who was absent for part of the early season through injury, but absolutely came in clutch towards the end. What other maniac would pull this off in a final? It's disrespectful, honestly. As things stand, these two are heavily in the race for the Ballon d'Or, and it's hard to imagine it will go to anyone else. Of course, this will all depend on the Euros and the Copa America. Valverde, Camavinga, Tchouaméni, Rudiger, Rodrigo, Arda, Brahim Diaz, and now Kylian Mbappe. Real Madrid fans are the most spoiled fans on the planet. Toni Kroos had enough, so decided to call it quits. Walking out while you're on top is always a very smart move, and that's exactly what he decided to do. He's 34. Meanwhile, Luka Modric is going on 39, 6 Champions Leagues deep, and hungry for more. So where are you guys in the argument of Carlo Ancelotti amongst the best managers to ever exist? He already had the record for most Champions League wins as a manager before this season, so statistically, he's the best Europe has ever seen in that respect. Overall, he's won almost everywhere he's gone and continues to do so regardless of the players he has at his disposal. If we include the titles he won as a player, Carlo Ancelotti alone has won more Champions League titles than every other club than Real Madrid and AC Milan. Let that sink in. Kroos, Modric, Carvajal, and Nacho have all won the same amount as Bayern Munich and Liverpool, the most spoiled fans on the planet. And I'm sure Barcelona loved every minute of it. It's been another season of madness for Blaugrana, winners of the league in the previous campaign, but victims of a lot of shortcomings in this one. Out early in the Copa del Rey, out in the quarterfinals of the Champions League after an internal implosion by Ronald Araujo, and similar to Bayern Munich, a lot of uncertainty regarding the incumbent manager. It was announced that Xavi and the club would part ways early in the second half of the season, only for that decision to seemingly be overturned and then ultimately confirmed only 2 days before the final game of the year. It makes a lot of sense, I know. Robert Lewandowski had his worst year in what seems like over a decade, as fitness seemed to be an issue. More time for TikTok, I guess. Cancelo made this weird face too. I don't know, I just thought it was worth mentioning. Lamine Yamal was probably the main highlight of the year. 16 years old at the start of the season and playing with with confidence that you would usually associate with someone that has much more experience, especially in the Champions League. He's one to watch out for sure. He's probably got the golden boy wrapped up. But as for Barcelona as a whole, things are usually not as bad as we think they are, and sad times can very quickly become happy times. A new deal with Nike has been rumored since after the end of the season, and this contract, if it goes through, is said to be worth up to 1.4 billion euros over 10 years. This could solve all their problems regarding player registrations and complying with La Liga regulations. Who knows? Hansi Flick has his word cut out for him. Girona were the best team in Catalonia for a large part of the season, which is a wild sentence. In fact, they did the double on Barcelona this season, almost out of nowhere. The rise of Girona is as impressive as it is shady though. A member of the City Football Group and an obvious beneficiary of the resources that Manchester City's owning organization have to offer. All the same, they were fantastic this season. We can't take that away from them. 81 points in the league is nuts for a team that only entered the league for the first time in 2017, and they've made the Champions League, of course. Remember when everyone was talking about the prospect of Man City and Girona being in the Champions League being a conflict of interest? But it also does not matter at this point, does it? We're looking at you, Red Bull. Antoine Griezmann had yet another wonderful season with Atletico Madrid, as the team came in 4th place. Diego Simeone's men had a mixed season, I would say overall. Horrible when not playing at home, but hardworking and resilient as usual. Athletic Bilbao won the Copa del Rey for the first time since 1984 after defeating Mallorca on penalties. What's particularly impressive about this win is that they had to go through Barcelona and Atletico Madrid in the previous rounds, including a 3-0 win against Atletico with both Williams brothers scoring. As for Real Sociedad, Almeria were relegated. I'll let this fan show you how he felt about the situation. As of next season, Liga and Uber Eats will be the Liga and McDonald's. The memes write themselves at this point. It will bring in about 20 million euros per year though. Even still, I doubt the fans are loving it. But back to the money part, it does make sense. The league is the lowest earner amongst the top 5 leagues, so they gotta start monetizing more, I guess. On a more positive note, the league does have a lot more going for it. According to The Athletic, it's the most competitive league in the top 5. Competitiveness is based on finances. If we take a look at this chart from The Athletic, we see the Premier League and Liga and quite close together. And what this basically means is that the Premier League is super competitive because everyone is rich. Meanwhile, Ligue 1 is super competitive because everyone is poor. It is what it is. But this does translate to sporting results too. The difference in points between 1st and 2nd is 9, sure, but the difference between 2nd and 8th is only 17 in France. Now, that's not actually a lot. Here's a list of the points differences between 2nd and 8th for every other league in this year's campaign. 29 points for the gap in the Premier League. What the hell? Wait, who finished in 8th? Never mind. Paris Saint-Germain won Ligue 1 for the 10th time in 12 years, so what we're witnessing here is a true underdog story. A domestic treble too. Luis Enrique might be the best thing that's happened to PSG from an outside perspective, at least. Maybe it's just me, but I feel like the stigma around PSG was a lot less strong this year. From the start of the season, Kylian Mbappe was being pressured to extend his contract through to 2025 when it was clear that this wasn't gonna happen. He was frozen out of the preseason tour, and there were even reports that Nasser Al-Khelaifi was trying to force Luis Enrique to not play Mbappe. This never happened. Whether that was down to Luis Enrique or not, I don't know, but PSG have also shown an increased maturity on the pitch. Now, I wouldn't actually be surprised if PSG ended up doing well with life after Mbappe. There are no more big personalities in that dressing room. All the same, they are losing 45 plus goals per season across all competitions with this guy. When Mbappe announced he was leaving PSG, we all knew what was coming next. Comunicado Oficial hit our timelines only a few days after the Champions League final. After all that edging, the story ends with a simple comunicado. Fabrizio Romano is in tears, I swear. According to Football Benchmarks, Mbappe is the highest valued player in the world at the moment. It's not surprising, and PSG have just lost him on a free transfer. That's tough. Monaco delivered a 2nd place performance that sees them back in the Champions League after a 6th place finish last season, and Brest maybe had the most surprising season of them all in the French league. Having failed to finish higher than 8th in the first division in multiple decades, they finished 3rd in the league. And they started off with a bang too, first after a fair few games. But even with a great start, a high finish wasn't exactly guaranteed. In 2010, when they did the same thing and, got off to a really good start, they ended up finishing in 16th. We can now officially add them to the list of teams that have played in the Champions League because next season, it'll be their first. Lille, Nice, Lyon, and Lens round up the remainder of the European competition places. Nice, the same team that is owned by Manchester United's partial owner, Sir Jim Ratcliffe, will be in the Europa League, the same competition that Manchester United will be in. Did I hear someone in the back say conflict of interest? Lyon have somehow managed to secure a top 6 position after seemingly being destined for disaster. 4 wins in their first 19 games of the season left them in 16th place. As a matter of fact, they spent 9 match weeks in rock bottom. Laurent Blanc's lack of tactics and the departures of Bradley Barcola and Castello Luqueba were too much to handle, it seems. 2 managers later, and Pierre Sage stepped in to save the day. By making the team more aggressive and solid in defense, Lyon were able to turn their fortunes right around. After signing experience in Nemanja Matic, Said Benrahma, and more in the winter window, by the grace of the gods and an unbelievable turnaround, the team qualified for the Europa League. It really is quite something. In other news, Alexander Lacazette is still a beast, and to top this entire crazy season off, Lyon were only in the top 6 for a total of 1 minute throughout the season. They scored a last-minute winner in their final match against Strasbourg and secured that Europa League position. And they made it to the Coupe de France final, but were unfortunately defeated by PSG. Nonetheless, they really did save their best for last. VAR was a massive talking point across the Premier League all season, mainly due to how it seems to not actually help in making the correct calls. Luis Diaz was deemed to be offsides in a match against Tottenham Hotspur that Liverpool went on to lose. On multiple occasions, we saw a stamp go unpunished and then the exact same scenario punished severely. On the very first match day, Andre Onana introduced himself to the Premier League by doing his best Edge impression. The PGML was writing apology letters on a weekly basis, and Gary Neville had new material ripe and ready before the Gary Neville podcast every week, which also happens to feature Gary Neville. But something that just about everybody with some sense began to realize was that it wasn't exactly the VAR technology itself that was a problem, it was the operators. If millions of people across the globe can tell that freeze frames without any lines drawn are more than conclusive, how is it possible that the people that have the technology right in front of them cannot? It's very, very odd. When the state of refereeing is such that seasoned professionals like Anthony Taylor are blowing the whistle in situations like this, then we know we're headed in a wrong direction. Which is why Wolves, among many others, are heavily in favor of getting rid of VAR. But one thing that we all know is 100% conclusive is that Manchester City are likely going to win the Premier League every year that Pep Guardiola remains in England. They are simply just too good, aren't they? 6 Premier League titles in 7 years. It's annoying, but we have to give it up. Guardiola as a manager has only lost the title race in 3 out of the 15 seasons he's been a manager, which is just unthinkable. It's a record you'd want to protect whatever it takes, which is exactly why Heung-min Son missed an opportunity that potentially could have seen City lose the title to Arsenal over here. Guardiola had this reaction, which is the most nervous we've seen him. But let's be real, this was just for the cameras. He knew exactly what was gonna happen. Phil Foden went into a whole new gear this season. In a year when Kevin De Bruyne and Erling Haaland were either absent or inconsistent at times, he carried that City attack on his back. Of course, Rodri was amazing, but let's all give it up to Jeremy Doku. This guy was essentially City's trump card in those tight matches. Get the ball to Doku became a bit of a meme at some point. What can we say about Manchester City? Quite a lot, if we're all being honest, almost 115 things. Even when it looks like things may not go their way, they just decide not to lose and blow the competition out the water. Which is tough, because I really did think that Arsenal were set for a huge upset. The Gunners came back bigger and better this season. season. They signed Declan Rice, Kai Havertz, and Jurrien Timber. The season was said to be an incredible journey for them, where they would come back from previous disappointment and make all the doubters pay. Then Jurrien Timber was injured in his first match. However, this didn't derail the Gunners. Mikel Arteta's men went on to have a fantastic season, all things considered. They played with a renewed authority, physically bigger players outrunning everyone and racking up some very impressive scorelines. On 10 different occasions, they won by 3 goals or more. Declan Rice proved himself to be well worth the huge £100 million transfer and appeared pretty much everywhere on the pitch, from defense to attack. Overall, it's a shame that they were put up against the best team to ever play in the league. Arteta should be really proud of his boys, and I'm expecting bigger, better things next season. But on the topic of huge transfer fees, everyone's favorite punching bag, Chelsea, is up next. It only makes sense. Chelsea spent billions and somehow became worse. They made a home out of 10th place earlier in the season, and it really did look like this is where they would remain indefinitely. Cole Palmer had other ideas though. If it weren't for him forcing his way out of Manchester City, Chelsea may have been in a relegation battle. I remember when everyone was saying that he would flop in the league and Chelsea would live to regret spending that 45 million. They were wrong, and Cole Palmer is cold. But he didn't only have to fight against the early opinions of supporters, he had to battle his way through his own teammates. On countless occasions, these guys couldn't decide who the designated penalty taker was. And because of this, a lot of people pointed their finger towards Mauricio Pochettino as the problem. Even though Chelsea's form rapidly improved towards the end of the season, he was still let go. I don't know why, you don't know why. Yet, despite all of this, Chelsea finished the season with a Europa League qualification. It's a real turnaround. All of this despite the fact that Nicholas Jackson was actively working against them for a lot of the year. And as I say this, I see that he scored 14 goals this season, and I can confirm that I am indeed just a hater. Speaking of Klopp's kids, Liverpool had a bit of a confusing season themselves. The Reds underwent a large rebuild at the start of the season. Many of their biggest stars left the club and their midfield was in dire need of reinforcement, and Klopp and the gang absolutely nailed it in making them competitive immediately. Alexis McAllister, Dominic Szoboszlai, and Wataru Endo, along with the already existing players like Harvey Elliott, were fantastic. Van Dijk returned to his incredible best and bossed the defense. Mohamed Salah is fantastic as usual, Luis Diaz too. Klopp, as always, did an incredible job. It's too bad that it was for the last time. After 9 years at Anfield, Jurgen Klopp bid farewell to Liverpool, making 3 Champions League finals while winning 1 and being the only manager to have stopped this behemoth we call Manchester City is no easy feat, but he did so with passion. He will be missed. And while it's the end for Klopp, it could very well be the beginning for Aston Villa. In just 2 years, Unai Emery has turned Aston Villa into the 4th best team in the country. He's returned Aston Villa to the Champions League for the first time since 1983, 1 year after they won it, so keep that in mind. Remember when Spurs won the league in October after only 10 games played? I remember. Ange Postecoglou made everyone believe. Or maybe it was just the accent. No, it was definitely more than that. He's proven himself to be exactly what Spurs needed in my eyes. Taking over a Spurs side that just lost Harry Kane was tough as it was, but he did very well. It's a shame that injuries and some poor lapses in judgment by some players derailed their momentum early on. Take the Chelsea 4-1 defeat. Destiny Udogie didn't need to get that red card. Moments like that weren't ideal. Madison being the second coming then getting injured weren't either. Anyway, so here's a clip of Son drinking water from Crystal Palace's star from a Korean broadcast of a Spurs vs Palace game. This man's face appears instead of the Spurs logo. I did some digging and realized that this is how every Spurs match is broadcasted in South Korea. How am I only finding out about this now? Newcastle didn't have the best time either. From high-flying last season to 7th this year after the squad succumbed to injury after injury and increased strain thanks to European football. Then again, this image. This is when Mbappe decided to leave. I'm not arguing this point with anyone, it's fact. As this Newcastle fan knows all too well, when it rains, it pours, especially at Old Trafford. Being a Manchester United fan is the most frustrating thing to ever happen to mankind. Another point I refuse to debate with anyone. This team is so damn confusing. One game they're playing tiki-taka, the next they're facing 31 shots in one match versus 16th place Brentford. -1 goal difference is crazy. And rumor has it that Casemiro is still walking around in the midfield, not reacting to it. It was a dreadful season for so many reasons. Højlund received no service, the defense was on the nurse bed all year, and even the stadium was crying. The FA Cup is even more proof that you never really know what you're gonna get with these lots. An incredible comeback win versus Liverpool, an incredible near bottle job versus Coventry, and then a very competent display in the final versus City. Doku's goal was very avoidable here, but it was still a great performance. Despite the negativity, I am positive about the future. Mainu holds my hopes and dreams in his hands, and I know he'll deliver.
It was perfect. Perfect. Everything, down to the last minute details.
Give Ten Hag some time, he's earned it. David Moyes spent his last season at West Ham. I would think that he should be a legend at this point, and that's not just because of the Conference League win. West Ham was massive when he arrived, and it's still massive, and they'll continue to be so. Want to bet on it? For the 11th season in a row, Crystal Palace has finished with a points tally between 41 and 49. These men are never getting relegated. Bless Roy Hodgson. People from Brighton are too polite for their own good. In the Europa League round of 16, Roma fans put up a banner saying that the Queen gave blowjobs. And Brighton responded in the reverse fixture with a banner saying Totti likes pineapples on his pizza. It's a huge burn. I don't think the Romans are recovering from this one. Against all odds, Everton secured 44 points and remained in the league after being docked 8 points over the course of the season and being victims of what probably felt like a targeted attack from the Premier League. 70 seasons and counting, no relegations. The 4th best defense in the league after City, Liverpool and Arsenal will do that for you. Elsewhere, this is the fan of the season, over at Kenilworth Road no less. Vincent Kompany has showed us all how to fail upwards, and Sheffield made history by conceding 104 goals in a single season. I repeat, 104. How? To me that they even managed to get 16 points if I'm being completely honest. They conceded almost 3 goals per game over the entire season. How is that even possible? The scenes of United fans leaving after 15 minutes against Arsenal tell you all you really need to know. Sheffield were 3 goals down at this point and went on to lose by 6. Then again, perhaps we're all looking at this wrong. It's highly possible that United saw that Wednesday managed to stay in the championship and decided that the world needed its biggest rivalry back. I'll give them the benefit of the doubt. Inter Milan were the best team in Italy by a huge distance. It's a shame that they fell so flat against Atletico Madrid in the Champions League because they were phenomenal all season, almost 20 points above second place AC Milan. Marcus Thuram was an unbelievable acquisition by the team, and Lautaro Martinez, as always, was phenomenal. And beating AC Milan by 5-1 isn't too bad. Simone Inzaghi has gotten something right, that's for sure. Theo Hernandez and Denzel Dumfries is the beef that we all really needed to prove that football hasn't gone anywhere. These two have been added at every single opportunity, but it was Dumfries that had the last laugh this time. We got Olivier Giroud as a goalkeeper before GTA 6, and he's not that bad either. The Milan clubs have restored the historic trend of hugging the top 2. Good for them. Paul Pogba has been banned from all football activities for 4 years, which probably means he's about done, I can imagine. I can't see a 34-year-old Pogba that hasn't played in 4 years getting the kinds of contracts he's on, you know? All the same, Juventus managed a 3rd place finish in his absence. Atalanta are a very curious team. Maybe the team that everyone needs to study. They're the only squad that managed to beat Bayer Leverkusen all season, and as I said, they wiped the floor with them. With Liverpool too. Their press was relentless and their desire was palpable. The score was 3-0 in the final of the Europa League as Ademola Lookman had the game of his life. A 4th place finish on 69 points, nice, is not too bad. Performances like this in Europe ensured early that Italy would get 5 Champions League spots in the expanded competition. Not bad either, meaning that Bologna, who finished in 5th place, were rewarded for having their best finish in the league since the 60s because they also got Champions League football. Roma just missed out, partly due to a Jose Mourinho blowout, but under Daniele De Rossi showed significant improvement in both domestic and European competition. Fiorentina has appeared in more Europa Conference Conference League finals than anybody else, but they have yet to win the trophy. Congratulations to Olympiacos though. Napoli had one of the worst title defenses in recent times, 10th after blasting their way through the competition and blowing everyone away last year. Maybe we should have seen it coming when Luciano Spalletti and Kim Min-jae said goodbye. Rudy Garcia was appointed as Spalletti's replacement but was later sacked and replaced by Walter Mazzarri, who also wasn't able to right the ship. It's too bad. And lastly, on the topic of VAR being scrapped, Empoli gives us an example of what many people are saying is the ultimate problem with the system. In a match they lost against Torino, a goal was scored that was ultimately deemed to be offsides. Be warned, viewer discretion is advised for the computer-generated graphic that I'm about to show you that confirm their decision. Look at this. Just look at the state of this call. It's unbelievable, really. I personally don't believe for a second that the exact moment that the assist left the assister's foot, the dynamic movement of both the defender and the attacker, correspond with the exact frame that we see over here. There has to be a level of inaccuracy here. When you look at calls like this, it's hard to imagine that someone hasn't just decided to rule against the attacker. But anyway, and on that note, that's all we have for this season's review. I know that there are a ton of stories that I've missed in this review, and for that, I'm truly sorry. I tried to include the biggest stories from the top leagues, but you know how it goes. Let me know what I missed in the comments. Anyway, that's all for me today. Hope you guys enjoyed. Hope you're having a great day. Cheers, and I will catch you in the next one.